Well, former Sars official Johann van Loggerenberg has welcomed a court decision to set aside a report into the so-called Sars rogue unit. That report by the Inspector General of Intelligence was used to accuse a number of officials of spying. Van Loggerenberg joins us now via Skype. Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. You know, we all remember the Sunday Times headlines in May 2014 talking about this rogue unit within Sars that was spying on the president and running a brothel. You know, since then, Sunday Times has retracted that. It's turned out to be bogus. In fact, what your unit was doing quite legally was chasing tax criminals. I just wonder, is it over? Is it over now? Do you have full vindication? Is this chapter ended? Because I'm going to read what SARS said. They've welcomed the court order. And that Commissioner Kisweta consistently held that there was no evidence of a rogue unit. And they say this brings the debate to an end. Do you agree it's done now?
Good evening, and to your viewers, thank you for the opportunity. I don't think it's done, and I certainly don't consider it to be vindication. At all. There's still the matter of the Public Protector's report of 2019 that expresses adverse comments in respect of the establishment of the unit and how the unit functioned, which is a matter that's before our courts at the moment on review by Minister Pravin Gordhan, Mr. Opa Magashula and Mr. Ivan Pillay. I should just correct you. The so-called rogue unit propaganda started in October 2014, shortly after Mr. Tom Moyane took helm at the Revenue Service. The articles before that were by and large directed at myself as an individual and certain of my capabilities at the South African Revenue Service at the time, by somebody I had briefly dated and who turned out to be a triple agent for all sorts of spook outfits. So initially it just started on a fairly personal attack, which then later on different people with different agendas began to jump on the bandwagon. And they all had one thing in common, and that is that the Revenue Service of the time was a big problem for them in one way or another. Whether it was their tax affairs that weren't in order, or some of them were facing jail time or investigations, it didn't matter. And come October 2014, of course, we know now that some of the people within the Revenue Service and Mr. Moyane and the former president, Mr. Zuma, together with Bain and Company, had already planned to alter things somewhat at the Revenue Service, and came complete with a list of people to eliminate and people to watch out for. And I think the rest is history.
Yeah, and it has been a long saga, and for those of us watching it has been astonishing. But for you living through it, it must have been incredibly painful, massive reputational damage. Just tell us a little bit more about that, and whether you are going to be suing for damages. Are you going to be taking legal action against those who got it wrong, who published false allegations?
It's always been my intention to, I think, ensure that justice is served. And the fact of the matter is, to simplify the story down to the crux, what we're dealing with is a group of individuals, both within the Revenue Service and people who've left there, taxpayers who are in trouble, and people with political influence, and their cohorts in law enforcement agencies and intelligence agencies and so on, who all basically operated in tandem in order to facilitate the demise of the Revenue Service as it was at that point in time. Those people must be held to account. They need to explain to the public why they did what they did, how they did it, upon whose instructions, who made it easy for them, and so on.
And that leads me to the question, I'm so sorry, I just have to jump in and ask you, you know, one of the biggest topics under our lockdown is the ban on tobacco sales. And, you know, Edward Kieswetter quite open about how the illegal trade in tobacco has just absolutely flourished. It's a huge hot topic now. If the unit, which was chasing exactly the illegal tobacco manufacturers, had been allowed to continue its work, do you think we'd be sitting in the position we are with illegal tobacco today?
Most certainly not, no. I mean, the project Honey Badger, the well-known project of the time, was intended to level the playing fields, wipe the slate clean, and get to grips with the illicit tobacco trade, and it certainly did so. Markedly so, because excise taxes increased voluntarily by 25% by the end of 2013. There were 15 criminal cases on the go, and there was about 3 billion rand ready to be collected in the coming months. That all stopped, and as a consequence, one saw at the South African Revenue Service Commission of Inquiry into Governments and Administration that the illicit trade shot through the roof up to the high 30% of the total market. There was a little bit of a turn of that when Mr. Kieswetter took over at the Revenue Service, but that was just before COVID, and I think the ban has thrown a spanner in the works. As we sit here now, the entire tobacco industry in South Africa, when it comes to trading and selling, is illegal. That means 100% of all cigarette trade in the country, which amounts to more than 2 billion rands worth of income, is going into the pockets of crooks.
I mean, that's shocking. You know, you say that Edward Kieswetter has made some progress. Do you think SARS will recover soon? Do you think SARS will be able to get to that point where it actually strikes fear into the heart of tax dodgers?
I hope so. I don't know. I know very little about what's going on there. I should just say, you know, I must echo some wise words said once upon a time when this started. It takes many, many years to build an institution to a level at which the Revenue Service functioned by 2014. Many years, decades actually, of blood, sweat and tears, and you can break it within a couple of months, and that's what's happened. To come back from that is not going to be a quick job. I think Mr. Kieswetter and his team's they've got their task cut out for them. But I do think there are, you know, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of things that fell off the wagon that can, you know, we can stop the wagon and go pick them up. And I think that's what they should do. They should look for those areas where they can leverage from. And I think the entire state capture drama is a marvelous pool to go and fish in, and I don't even think you need much bait on your hook. You can just literally throw your hook in the pond and you're going to catch a big fish.
You're a private tax consultant these days. Would you ever go back to SARS to assist?
No, I'm also a father now. I started late in life, but I have a wonderful little daughter. And I got married late in life during all this drama. So my priorities in life have changed completely. And I think I'm comfortable where I am. I put in my years of service and I did what I could. I can talk about swallows in the winter, but the fact of the matter is, one person is not going to make a change. You need a team there. You need a coherent team. You need a higher purpose back. You need some courage and some backbone, which I don't see, unfortunately, at the Revenue Service. And I think the guys need to just, get back to how we used to work, day and night, 7 days a week. Yeah. But I'm a phone call away, and I'll only cost a cup of coffee if they want some thoughts, and that's as far as I'll go.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, Johann van Loggerenberg, former SARS investigator.